Hello everyone, I am Professor Nayan Asne, Department of Information Technology, Parvatibai Genma Mercy College of Engineering, Vagoli. So in the last session, we have seen the different terminologies under the Scrum process. So in this session, we'll see how the process flow of the Scrum is. So the Scrum process flow contains the 8 steps, or we can say that 8 stages. The first stage is the setup, second is create a product, third is create a user story, fourth is create a release, fifth is create a sprint, sixth is plan sprint, seven is track sprint progress or progresso, and 8 is generate a chart. So we'll see one by one the stages of this process flow. First is the setup. So you need to set the environmental setup, remove any customization from the existing application, activate the Scrum process that lacks the plugin. That means you have to activate the Scrum process, you have to assign different roles to different persons. So that is done under the setup. If you have some previous application which is existing, you have to remove that application, you have to start a new one. Okay. So that is under the setup. You have to totally set the environment for the application, environment for the software product under the Scrum or using the Scrum terminology. So second is create a product. Now create a product means the product represent the functionality which is identified by the owner. So the product owner is the responsible person who will give the requirements to the product team. So the product contains the different features which are needed for the advancement, which are useful for the customer satisfaction. So the product is nothing but a large list of the requirements which are stated by the product owner, or we can say the product is nothing but the combination of all the requirements, all the user stories which is created by the product owner. Third is to create a user story, as we have seen as I have already told. The product contains the list of the requirements which are stated under the user story. Now what is the user story? User story are the requirements which are stated by the product owner using a simple formal language. So the user story are written in a plain language. It contains less or minimum numbers of the technical words. So any person who is reading that user story can easily understand what is the requirement. So it contains the specific requirement that the product should have. That is the very primary requirements, very basic requirements that the product should have. Then next is the create release. So create release is nothing but your start date of the sprint and the end date of your sprint. So that is your create release. It has start and end dates in which numbers of development iteration are completed. So each sprint has start date and end date. So create release contains number of sprint and the start date and end date of that sprints. Then create a sprint. Your fifth step is create a sprint. So sprint is the basic unit of time in a development process when you are using the Scrum. So it can have any length. Typically one sprint contains 1 to 4 weeks. That means sometimes it ends in a 15 days, sometimes it goes to the 1 month. So it depends on what requirement they have chosen for that particular sprint. So the Scrum Master create one or more sprint. Generally it is more than one. So sprint should release in a given time and the end date. So it should start in a given time and it should end in a given time. So the Scrum team need to complete all the stories which are committed in that particular sprint. The next sixth one is the plan for the sprint. That is a planning meeting which is held for the particular sprint. So the team and Scrum Master need to decide on which stories they are committed to complete the sprint. Now from the various list which is taken from the product owner, the list of requirement, some sort is done, some requirement are fetched, some requirements are taken from the product backlog and added to the sprint backlog. So planning the sprint contains the requirement which are taken from the product backlog, okay, from the list of the requirement which are stated by the product owner. So sprint take some requirements from the overall requirement and plan according to that requirement should be completed in a given time span, that is a 15 days or 1 month. So The planning of the sprint is done on what requirement we are taking from the overall requirement, what how much capability of the humans are requirement, or what is the capacity of the team for the particular requirement we have chosen. Is there balance or not? So the Scrum Master makes sure that capacity of the sprint team matches with the requirement story. So whatever users are there, whatever development team is there, it should match whatever requirement we have taken for that particular sprint. Okay. So the velocity chart is very important in a planning the sprint. So velocity chart shows us the historical record of the numbers of completed point. So velocity chart is the most important tool which is used in a planning the sprint. Then next come the task sprint progresso or task sprint progress. So the Scrum Master is responsible person for checking the progress of that sprint. He provides the progress report of the team. The team member frequently update the record in a track team progresso. Then the last one is generator chart. So there is a number of charts which are used under the Scrum to progress or to see the progress of your development process. So one of the chart is burn down chart, which actually compares whatever progress is there and whatever we have planned the progress for the particular phase. So there are different charts which are used under the Scrum. So the last step is to generate a chart to show how much work is completed or to analyze what work we have completed and what we have planned. So that will give you the actual progress of your software development. So this is the flow of the Scrum, which is having a 8 step. First is the setup. So set up the environment, create a product. That means you need to create the product backlogs. That is nothing but the list of the requirements stated by the product owner. Third is create a user story. Creating user story means taking the requirements from the product backlogs, that is a list of features, and write in a simple formal language so easily anyone can understand what the requirement is. The fourth one is create a release. That means the start date and end date of your sprint. So generally for the software for the software development, when you are using a Scrum, numbers of sprint can be planned. So you have to add, or you should know what is the start and end date for the particular sprint. Okay, and for each and every sprint you need to plan the start and end date, and sprint should be completed in given time date, that is a start date and end date. So next is, if you are finalizing the different sprint, the fifth step is to create the sprint. So creating a sprint means you have to take the requirements from the product backlog, that is a sprint backlog. Okay, from the overall requirement, that is a product backlog. Product backlog are nothing but the features and the requirement which are stated by the product owner. So in a sprint, you are taking some of the requirement, you are shortlisting the requirement for the particular sprint. So the shortlisted requirement are called as the sprint backlog. So that sprint backlog are chosen for creating a sprint. Then we need to know the capacity of the team that should handle whatever we have requirement we are stated for the particular sprint. So that should be matched. So equally balance should be there. So Scrum Master should ensure the capacity of the sprint team with the requirement stories that he have taken from the overall product backlog. Then next is planning the sprint. So everything is done by the Scrum Master by balancing, by creating a velocity chart. So that is the important tool under the planning the sprint. So you have to make sure what numbers of people are available in a team and what they will be handled, what different portfolio they are having, what is the priority list for that particular sprint, what features need to be developed under that particular sprint, what is the starting date, what is the ending date for that particular sprint. So these things should be done in a sixth place, that is a plan the sprint. The next is track the sprint progress. So Scrum Master is wholly responsible person to check the progress of that sprint. He provides the progress report of the team. So we are getting well known about what progress the team is doing, what progress in work is there, or anything is lapsing, anything is remaining. So that things is done under the track the progress report, or we can say that track the sprint progress, which is done by the Scrum Master. And the last is generate the chart. So whatever work they have done, whatever work the development team has done, so they put the things in a visualized chart. So one of the example is a burn down chart, which will actually compare your actual progress with the planned progress. Okay. So these are the different chart which are used under the Scrum process. And the last step is the generate chart. Okay. Under which the different chart are generated to visualize the progress of the team or the progress of that particular sprint. So this is the normal flow of the Scrum process. I hope everyone understand the setup or the process of the Scrum. So if you have any query, you can comment in comment box. In the next session, we'll start with the different roles under the Scrum. If anyone is having any doubt, they can comment in a comment section. So thank you.